Bosses in video games are often the most memorable parts. I mean, I just made a video about fighting Mega Man bosses in a challenge run sort of way because I like them all so much. The same, however, cannot be said for the bosses of the Fire Emblem series, where most of the time they're just some guy on a throne that has an annoying amount of evasion. And trust me, there has been a lot of negativity surrounding this topic. Even my own most viewed video is at least partially about how some of the bosses of this franchise are an absolute travesty of game design. However, as somebody who's currently making their own strategy game, I want to look at what it takes to make an actual engaging boss in a game like this. So, let's go through 3 examples of bosses that I actually think are pretty good by this series of standards. And hey, if I missed one you like, you can comment them down below. Apologies in advance to the Riddle Nation, he will not be brought up. Now, let's get going with number 1. I think Camus from the Arcanea saga is pretty cool. For starters, he's actually aggressive. If you get in his range, he will move in to attack you. That already puts him above like 99% of the other bosses in this series. Beyond that though, there are several ways to approach him, each with their own benefits. First of all, you can just skip him by taking the left route and seizing the throne. This is not a good idea, however, as he holds the Gradivis, one of the most powerful weapons in the game. So if you're a skilled enough player, it's usually a good idea to fight him. If you take him from the right, he'll come at you and you can fight him without the interference of his allies, but he'll waste a use of the Gradivis attacking you. You could also approach him from the bottom, where there are mountains in the way blocking him so you can get the jump on him with your flyers. On top of all of this, he actually has competent stats. So running up to him with a Forged Rider's Bane like you've probably done with every other enemy in the game is unlikely to one-shot him, and accuracy against him can be shaky too. In my own Iron Man, I used the triangle attack to guarantee a hit and crit to ensure victory. So what we have here, ladies and gents, is a multi-layered boss that has multiple possible approach options, each with their own pros and cons, and to defeat him efficiently, you're encouraged to use unique mechanics like the triangle attack or Earth Sphere. On top of it all, if you do take him out, you're rewarded with an excellent item. It's interesting how just not placing your boss on a throne and adding an alternate pathway or two can make all the difference. Now, Camus has competent stats, but it's still mostly a fair experience to take him on in battle. If you want to experience quite the opposite, however, let's talk about the funny man from that mobile game. For a short list, Reinhardt has a 1-2 range weapon that hits twice on both phases, capped magic, 2 whole skills that allow him to continue combat beyond its usual length, Vantage which lets him always attack first, a skill that can completely negate any damage done to him, 5 authority stars which slightly raise the hit of evasion of all of his allies on the map for each one, is surrounded by several other mage knights, so you're not just dealing with him, and like Camus, you can actually trigger him to be aggressive. In summary, if you fight him, you die. For those of you who have never played Thracia, you might be thinking that this sounds like complete BS. And it is. But here's the thing. In Thracia, you also have access to complete BS that you don't in other entries in the series. For example, you can berserk him from across the map, causing all of his allies to make attempts on his life. However, this locks you out of a special event he has with Olwen where she gets her unique sword. There are also other items you can use to obtain similar results, but without all the violence, like the Sleep Staff. But again, this locks you out of the event with Olwen, and his leadership stars will still be active. My personal favorite way of dealing with him is using the Thief Staff to steal his weapons. I used this method in a Let's Play I did on this channel a while ago, and I only did it to get another Dire Thunder for Olwen, since in my opinion it's far and away the best weapon in the game. However, then Reinhardt started doing something weird. He started moving towards the shops at the bottom of the map, without the rest of his squad following him. As it turns out, Thracia is the only game in the series where the AI can buy their own items. This allows you to get Olwen's unique item and actually kill Reinhardt while he's defenseless, removing his leadership stars from the equation. The drawback of this, however, is that it requires several uses of the Thief Staff, which you probably used a fair bit in the previous chapter to get some warp staves, so this strategy requires a bit of foresight. So overall, there are many ways to deal with Reinhardt without directly engaging with him. I actually think this is quite an interesting approach to boss design, as it actually encourages you to use alternative strategies in this, strategy game series, when most bosses can just be beaten with the meathead approach of just running up to them and beating them to death. Now you're probably thinking, 5 points, I can just use the Warp Staff to completely bypass Reinhardt. And that's true, but if you consider that doing so makes you a major pussy, that's right ladies and gentlemen, I won't be taking any lip from people who aren't alpha gamers. Skipping forward about 20 years, we have Sombron. No. Wait. Yes, I know I've made several videos that are rather unkind towards this chap, in a narrative and general creative sense, but I do think he works rather well as an actual enemy. Sombron is essentially the map itself and heavily dictates the way it's played, and unlike other bosses whose range takes up the entire map, he doesn't make me want to end it all. For one, he doesn't do his gimmicks every single turn, twice per turn, and on top of that, when he's about to do them, they're all clearly telegraphed. and even though his beams are avoidable, they can force you into unfortunate situations, like having to break your way into enemy territory sooner than you wanted. He can also completely turn off your rings before they otherwise would, forcing you to use their abilities in ways that differ from your original plan. Again, this is a strategy series, so being forced into uncomfortable situations where you're forced to improvise on the spot is a plus in my book. And if you play the full map and take down all the Dark Emblems, you'll have to do this fairly often. When you actually do get the opportunity to fight him though, he's not that impressive. But I'd say the impact he has on the map itself outweighs any annoying combination of skills the devs could have given him. His presence alone is what makes the map incredibly stressful. Fighting him is also quite the spectacle. He has so much health that you're likely to use a ton of engage and splashy attacks on him just to chip him down. He also allows for a decent bit of skill expression, as you can defeat him on the first cycle of Dark Emblems if you plan it out well enough. However, I wasn't good enough to do that, so after dealing with him for 2 hours, Jesus Christ, it's incredibly satisfying to finally put him down and finally finish your 50-hour adventure. And what more can you ask for with a boss? Well, maybe good writing, but... So those are 3 bosses in Fire Emblem that I actually think do their job rather well. Camus has an item you want, competent enough stats, and several unique ways to approach his position. Reinhardt forces you to think outside the box to deal with them, with each method having their own pros and cons, and Sombrun constantly forces you to think on the spot and improvise new strategies. What do they all have in common though? They demand your attention. Nobody calls Thracia Chapter 22 Beyond the River. They call it the map with Reinhardt in it. I couldn't even tell you what Camus's chapter is called. I just know it's the one where you fight Camus. I could go on. And each map, your sole focus is pretty much, how am I going to deal with this guy? And as seen with these 3 examples, there are plenty of different ways to go about doing that. That being said, I think the occasional thrown jobber is actually fine from time to time. If every boss you make is a huge, gigantic, world-ending event, it'll make the ones you actually want to stick out leave less of an impact on the player. Reinhardt wouldn't have the reputation he does if every boss in Thracia was as grueling as he was. It's just important to pace out the encounters you want to leave an impact on the player. The problem is that some Fire Emblem games don't even have one interesting boss, and I think it's something the series could improve upon in the future. With all that being said, I hope you've enjoyed this analysis of 3 Fire Emblem bosses that I think are rather cool gameplay-wise. If you enjoyed it, maybe you can like, comment, and subscribe, as it helps the channel. And as always, thank you to my patrons Ginger and Julia for supporting the channel. But of course, most importantly, remember to have a nice day. Bye-bye. Just kidding, baby. It's always Riddell. It's always been about Riddell. The best boss will always be Riddell. Oh my god, most well-written character in the series. Move out at a leisurely place. I clap for that. I clap for that. Frickin' Code of the Burger King, he's in that, got the weapon triangle, double advantage in that. You can't top that. You gotta go on a whole quest just to recruit him, whole 3-part quest. You ever have a boss that has a whole 3-part quest? Don't bring up Douglas. I'll kill you.